introduction, I will now hand over to Mr. Ruben Difuka to take over from this point. Mr. Difuka, sir.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you all. So welcome to this panel discussion. As Zambia prepares for the August 2026 general elections, there is a shared expectation among citizens, state institutions, political actors, and civil society organizations, the media, as well as the international community, that the electoral process will be credible, free, fair, peaceful, transparent, and inclusive. Achieving this objective requires sustained commitment to electoral integrity and collective action to address the challenges that have historically undermined public confidence in the electoral processes. A number of assessments and reports by both state and non-state actors have highlighted recurring concerns affecting electoral integrity. Notably, the 2025 Electoral Reform Technical Committee report identified issues such as electoral violence, the financing of political parties, and the utilization of political funds within a largely unregulated environment. These challenges, together with various forms of electoral malpractice, continue to pose risks to the democratic governance and public trust in our country. Corruption remains one of the most significant threats to the conduct of free and fair elections. And this is notwithstanding the fact that we do have provisions in our Constitution, as well as the Anti-Corruption Act and the Electoral Process Act, aimed at promoting transparency, accountability, and integrity in the electoral processes. So this morning we have a panel that will help us explore some of these issues and help give further illustration as to how we can address the concerns around electoral integrity. We are privileged, therefore, to be joined by a distinguished panel comprising representatives from the Electoral Commission of Zambia, the Zambia Police Service, Transparency International Zambia, the Alliance for Accountability Advocates Zambia, Mrs. Zambia, and the Christian Churches Monitoring Group. Together, these institutions bring a wealth of expertise and practical experience in promoting democratic governance, electoral integrity, accountability, media freedom, citizen participation, and election observation. So the objectives of this panel discussion are threefold. First, we want to identify and examine the key threats to electoral integrity and credible elections in Zambia. Second, we want to highlight ongoing initiatives and reforms that are being undertaken by various stakeholders to address these challenges. And third, we want to provide an opportunity for constructive dialogue and engagement with the audience on practical measures that can strengthen transparency, accountability, and public confidence in the electoral process. Allow me at this stage to introduce the panelists. I'll start with Mrs. Emma Mwenga Simfukwe, right in the middle. Madam Simfukwe, before I even introduce her, is worried about the aircon. It's a bit cold for her, so I'm sure someone will deal with that. So Emma is the manager of voter education at the Electoral Commission with over 17 years working experience in matters of electoral governance, voter education, and democratic governance. She's an accredited bridge facilitator and the lead for voter education at ECZ. You have a full bio on the screen, so I'll not read a full bio. For those that are interested, you can read that up. I'll start with the ladies. I'm told it's ladies first when there's no danger. So let me go to Anne Kapolio. Anne Kapolio is the programs officer at the Alliance for Accountability Advocates Zambia. And AAAZ convenes over 150 youth-led organizations involved in advancing citizens-led accountability, governance, transparency, and electoral integrity. She's an expert in youth engagement and women's participation. Anne, you're very welcome. Then I'll move on to Mr. Godfrey Chilavi. Mr. Chilavi You may have to wave Mr. Chilavi, just in case people think it's Peter who's Mr. Chilavi. Mr. Chilavi is a Senior Assistant Commissioner and Deputy Director of Public Relations at the Zambia Police Service with 27 years of law enforcement experience, a certified trainer of trainers, and specializes in crime prevention, community policing, electoral security, counter-trafficking, and protection of vulnerable persons. Just reading Mr. Chilavi's bio, I had shivers down my spine. Of course, you should be specialized in crime prevention, Mr. Chilavi. But Mr. Chilavi, you are very welcome. At the far end, I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Austin Kayanda. Right at my far end, Mr. Kayanda is the National Director of MISA Zambia. Mr. Kayanda is a chartered banker and marketer. And as a MISA Zambia leader, he brings expertise in media freedom, access to information, and ethical journalism to strengthen transparent electoral reporting, also combating disinformation and malpractices, as well as advancing public accountability for credible, peaceful, and inclusive elections. Mr. Kayanda, you're very welcome. Then I have two young brothers on the panel. I don't know how this happened. But Chimuka Nachivinga, I start with you. Chimuka is the Program Manager for Governance and Institutional Strengthening at Transparency International Zambia, with over a decade of experience in anti-corruption and governance. He has led TIZ's electoral monitoring, campaign finance integrity work, as well as results integrity initiatives, including the 2021 General Elections project that produced Zambia's first results integrity index. Chimuka, you're welcome. And last but not the least, to my immediate right, and Peter, I didn't do this because you are the youngest on the panel, but it's just because they're sitting next to me. Peter Manangombe is the Program Director at the Christian Churches Monitoring Group, CCMG, leading a 21-person team in election observation, which includes voter registration, long-term observation, and parallel vote tabulation. And he did this for the 2021 elections and preparing now for 2026. His expertise is in electoral monitoring, advocacy for electoral reforms, and coalition building for peaceful elections. So that's a panel that we have. And Ruben Lifuka, I was asking SSC what my title is. I'm just a street adult, but an interested stakeholder. So the way we engage in our conversation, we'll have rounds of discussions. We'll set the foundation of what we're talking about. And I will give each of the panelists time to speak to several questions. We've agreed on how we're going to do this dance. But let's start with the basics. We keep talking about electoral integrity. And the question one would ask is, what is electoral integrity and what are some of the pillars of electoral integrity? And possibly why is it important? Chimuka, you want to have the first stab, and then Emma from ECZ, you also speak to this?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, right.
Thank you so much, moderator, for that. Let me start by breaking this term into two, because we have integrity and we have got electoral in there. So before I maybe define what electoral integrity is, let me start by defining or breaking down what integrity is. And I'm sure all of us here, we understand the basic definition of integrity. Many people would say that integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is seeing you. Integrity is doing the right thing at the right time, in the right way, using the right resources. You can go on and on to add your definition in that manner. But for the sake of this discussion, allow me to say that integrity will mean anti-corruption related work, or somebody who is incorruptible. Okay? Now, this in the context of election mean that we need to set a code of standard. And that particular code of standard has to be followed and implemented for us to be able to realize that particular aspect of integrity. Secondly, it means that we need to implement and operate in a manner that is sound. And soundness here means that we need to conduct our elections in a manner that is professional and a manner that is actually transparent. The other third aspect that I'll talk about is that integrity brings in the aspect of completeness. And here completeness means that whatever we do with respect to the electoral cycle, we need to ensure that we put in steps that are robust, and these steps can, of course, point to the aspect of transparency and also ensuring that our democratic principles are actually followed. Now, coming to combining integrity with an aspect of elections. So electoral integrity from the point where I'm standing will mean that following the laid down principles. And these laid down principles are the democratic principles that we are supposed to follow when we are conducting our elections. This would include an aspect of transparency when we are conducting our elections. It will include an aspect of participation, citizen participation, to ensure that there is no fear that is actually instilled in the citizens or the would-be voters for them to be able to participate. This will also mean that all the institutions, including the electoral management body, uphold the code of conduct in terms of their execution of duties, because one of the hallmarks of ensuring that we can enjoy electoral integrity is to ensure that we have got a very professional, independent and non-partisan electoral management body as a starting point. The other aspect, of course, is to ensure that there is accountability in what we are doing, starting from the entire process of voter registration, nominations, adoptions, and so forth and so on. All these electoral processes are supposed to be subjected to a principle that talks of accountability, where leaders and even those institutions that are involved in the management of elections will open up to ensure that the citizens are updated every now and then on the steps that are being followed in the management of elections. Perhaps for now, I can end here.
All right, let's leave it at that. I wanted to get to Emma from the ECC's perspective. How do you define electoral integrity? I mean, we know there's no universal definition, but I would like to know from the ECC's perspective, how do you define that?
So thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. So the beginning point is to recognize that elections are high-stake activities for any nation, and because they present really an opportunity for citizens to elect their representatives. So if these have become high-stake over the years, it means that there is need to uphold a certain level of standard in which they ought to be conducted. So when we talk of election integrity, we are basically looking at a wide range of issues that cover processes and procedures, but also safeguards that are there in the electoral process to ensure that elections are conducted in a credible, free and fair manner, and also reflecting the will of the people. You cannot talk about election integrity and divorce it with the ultimate, that is the outcome of an election, and whether the will of the people has been clearly expressed. So election integrity will not occur or will not be fully met without the electoral processes being conducted within the legal framework of a nation, and the various processes also guided within the legal framework of the country. So when we fully look at from the EMB end, is that we are looking at do we have the adequate laws that clearly stipulate what needs to be done? Are we following those laws to the latter? Are we transparent? Are we engaging the citizens in order to carry them with us to the end point? Are the key stakeholders part and parcel of the process? Are we also carrying them through and through? Are we also transparent about the various stages of the electoral process? Because we all know that elections are not an event, they are a process that occur over a long period of time. So all that compounded together and asking ourselves, have we followed what is laid down in the law to the latter? And also, have we ensured that there is no one who is a player in the electoral process who's been unduly disadvantaged? All that will lead us to election integrity.
Great. You've laid a good foundation, and some of the questions you are asking are the questions I'll ask you, as this is later on, whether you're following the law and you're transparent, etc. But we'll come to that. Peter, you wanted to chip in from CMMG perspective on electoral integrity before we go to the challenges that we currently see in the system.
Well, thanks. So from what I gather is that there is no one definition that speaks to electoral integrity, but rather the recognition of the different principles and the factors. And here Emma referred to the legal framework governing elections. And the question there is, how effective is that legal framework in one, enhancing the participation of all people based on the issue of universal suffrage? The second issue is how open is the legal framework to promote inclusion, women, youths, and persons with disabilities. And the second aspect is institutions. How effective are these institutions in enforcing, the different provisions of the law so as to ensure that citizens can freely participate? But what is important for me around the issue of integrity is also the electoral dispute or electoral justice system, because when all is said and done, one will be aggrieved with an outcome of an election, and so the post-election activities in form of electoral disputes are equally important to define electoral integrity in that instance. And lastly, for me, is that electoral integrity would also mean paying particular attention to substantive issues in the electoral process, and not so much what the outcome would have been or what the threshold would mean to actually qualify for one to define that as a serious issue or a non-serious issue. So electoral integrity does not care about the seriousness of an occurrence. It cares about that occurrence actually having occurred. It cares about irregularities. It cares about illegalities. So that for me would be a definition, but it's easier to define what it's not rather than what it is rather.
It's easier to define what it's not and what it is at the moment is a good segue to then go to the next round of questions. Mr. Chilabi, in fact, don't pass the mic, it's coming right to you. What are the challenges that, from your perspective as Zambia Police, which you still see with the electoral system in Zambia at the moment, which would affect electoral integrity as we've defined it? From your perspective, what are those challenges or concerns?
Yeah, thank you very much. Before I touch on the challenges, allow me as well, moderator, to look at what electoral integrity is from the Zambia Police perspective, as well as law enforcement perspective. We all agree that, elections are a process, and it's a cycle. And this cycle falls within, certain parameters. There are certain areas surrounding this process. And this process needs to be guarded from threats. And looking at our mandate as Zambia Police Service, it is our duty to ensure that, we safeguard, we protect this process from various risks. It could be violence or other crimes, electoral-related crimes. So electoral integrity is that, component or process where elections or electoral process actually itself is free of these threats that I've just mentioned. Now, coming to your question with regard to the challenges, what are some of the challenges that we encounter Zambia Police Service with regard to the electoral process? I'm emphasizing the term electoral process so that we don't just focus on a certain period or phase of elections. It may start from voter registration to the day when, elections results are announced. Of course, there are a number of issues that we encounter. I think one of them is the issue of, electoral violence. Electoral violence is the number one threat, that we encounter from, in the process of policing elections. And when we talk about violence, we need to look at the two elements, for a crime to be committed. We're talking about the action that has happened here as well as the criminal aspect of it. So the challenge would be people or maybe stakeholders in an electoral process not following the law, what the law stipulates. We have the Constitution in this case. We do have the Electoral Process Act and other pieces of legislation that surround, any electoral process. And we do have situations where certain people, certain individuals do not follow what clearly is stipulated with regard to maybe protecting violence. But of course, there are other crimes other than violence, crimes such as, a malicious damage to property in this case. Someone needs to have their manifesto heard, someone needs to have their message heard by members of the public. Willfully, intentionally, this person moves in and decides to destroy that, which is there. And yet the law stipulates clear that they are not supposed to do that. So these are some of the challenges, that we encounter in, enforcing this law, in ensuring that, we maintain the electoral integrity.
Thank you, Mr. Chilabi. I will come back to you later on what is it that you're doing and how you're enforcing the law. But I want to turn to Anne. From AAAZ's perspective, you deal with young people. What is emerging as challenges for the young people to effectively participate in the electoral process at the moment?
All right, thank you so much, moderator. I will have to agree with the previous speaker and just make note that legal provisions do exist. Our policies as a country are very progressive and they're very extensive. But I think the biggest gap that exists is making sure that, think of the furthest place that you know in Zambia, from where we are right now, think of the furthest place that you can think of. Does that young person in that place with no access to clean and running water, no access to the internet, do they know what these laws provide for? And that is really what we should be aiming for. As an organization, one of the things that we have been doing to bridge this gap is, of course, IEC, the distribution of information, education, and communication. The positive use of social media as well. I know that a lot of us young people are on social media using the hashtags and the story times, and it still remains a very powerful tool if used correctly. And we make sure that the providers of this information is done in a very inclusive manner. I see that our theme is very inclusive because it has the word inclusive in it, but it's just not a word. It's very representative of the laws that we have. It's very representative of the work that we do, making sure that all these laws, all these provisions, the rights that the people have are distributed to the young people. In local languages, we do have materials as an organization that we distribute in the communities that is in local language. Because what good is a policy? What good is a law if the people don't understand it? And I think that's why we see a lot of young people being used as vessels for violence, a lot of young people being bought off, a lot of young people being used, quote unquote, as cadres. This is because the young people don't know the power that we possess. I'm not going to remove myself, I'm going to include myself. Because if I, as a young people, know, but my neighbor doesn't know, then there's no work that's being done. So I think for me, the biggest gap that still exists to this day is really the knowledge gap amongst the young people, but just amongst our citizenry as a country.
I'm glad you've included all of us young people. I'm a senior youth. Mr. Kayanda, from the media perspective, what are the challenges or the concerns of the media presently around the electoral process, which may affect the integrity of the process as we know it?
Yeah, thank you very much. There are several challenges regarding the media. The first thing we need to recognize is that we have AI, artificial intelligence, which is the big elephant in the room now. Whether we like it or not, it's there. And because it's there, it's prone to misinformation and disinformation. And this is a critical time when we need to give the voters information that will make them informed decisions. The second challenge we have at the moment is it's a known fact that in Zambia we have a polarized media. Some journalists, they do not report objectively. As such, they tend to be biased. There are certain things who even ignore good things that are happening. They just are negative or write only bad thing about them. The other challenge we have as a media, it's what we may call journalism of poverty. The salaries for journalists are very, very low in Zambia. I can tell you that in some of the community radio stations where I go to, the salary is 700 kwacha per month. Now, from that 700 kwacha, you have to pay rent, you have to take your 4 children to school, and so forth. Now, would you expect a journalist with such a low salary being invited by Mr. Lifuka, who is standing in for Lusaka Central, or maybe Eastern Province? You invite somebody to cover your trip, you are paying DSA, you are paying transport, you are paying... You don't expect objectivity in terms of such a journalist. The other thing we have is lack of resources. As you know that we are in a crucial time. This is now when we need investigative journalists, where we can expose the ill practices, what is not right, and as they defined, integrity is doing what is right. And at this time, we need investigative journalists, but it's very expensive, and you cannot do investigative journalism without resources. I submit. Okay.
Chimuka, you want to chime in? Go ahead.
Yes, thanks, moderator. I would want to agree with the previous speakers in terms of the challenges that have been put across, but let me just add a few. Of course, we have a legal framework, but I think that we can do better, especially when it comes to issues of political financing. One of the biggest challenges that we have seen as an organization is that the elections are being monetized, and this is creeping into our country because we do not have a strong and robust legal framework around political financing. Political parties do source their funds from wherever. And of course, there is some behavioral change that is being seen with respect to the voters, where they do not look at the manifesto or the ideas or the strategy of a candidate, but just expect in terms of how deep they can dip in their pocket for them to be able to vote. So, of course, that has to be checked. The second aspect, quickly, moderator, is the existing legal framework. I think that we also need to enhance our enforcement, because you will find that issues of violence and so forth and so on clearly are stipulated in the legal framework, the electoral processes. But when it comes to enforcement, especially on sanctions, it takes a longer period of time, for example, maybe for the ECZ to sanction a political party or a candidate who is campaigning using tribal remarks and so forth and so on. And that particularly distorts the entire electoral aspect. The other one is, we talk of fairness when we talk of integrity. And you see that looking at the 2026 elections, adoptions, and so forth and so on, much as we are preaching the gospel of inclusion and women participation, really there are very few women that have been nominated or adopted to stand as members of parliament, for example. So for me, I think we still need to ring fence and put a hinge in terms of supporting women participation and other marginalized groups. The other key one, moderator, is that when you look at intra-party democracy, most of the challenges that we see, actually, they stem from the intra-party democracy. And I'll give an example of what has happened in the 2026. When you look at the nomination and adoption process of the current ruling party, the UPND, how it was handled, I think it has stemmed into a number of different circumstances. In the history of Zambia, we have seen that almost about 9 members of parliament have gone unopposed. And this is because there are candidates that have actually withdrawn their candidates to stand in those respective constituencies. Of course, we need to investigate the factors that are leading to that. But of course, for us, where we are standing as an organization, is that there should be undue influence, because there is no candidate who can nurture their constituency for 5 years and only to come and withdraw at nomination and adoption level. So for me, I think those are some of the issues that, of course, bring in unfairness in the electoral process. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Chimuka. I'll come to you, Emma. You will summarize on this. Peter, your challenges from your perspective as CCMG, and then Emma will have the final say on this round of challenges before we look at what are you currently doing.
Well, I think for me it's the lack of enforcement of the laws. Many of you will agree that we've been monitoring elections from 2021 up to the last by-election that we had in this country. And the same issues, vote buying, the same issues, political violence, the same issues, access to polling stations, the same issues, media access. What does that tell you? It tells you there is no will to deal with the issues as they are. And so there's really a problem with the enforcement of the law. And the laws are quite clear. And I was going to ask questions, but I think it's not my duty this morning to ask questions. So I'll keep those. That's your duty. So I'll keep those questions and I'll send them to the relevant institutions. But really and truly, we need to begin to enforce the legal framework without looking over our shoulders and also thinking about what will happen to these institutions. Mm-hmm. This takes me back to the need to have to strengthen institutions such as the ACC, the Zambia Police, and others, so that they have greater autonomy in as far as they can execute their mandate. I mean, what's the use of having a provision that allows you to either suspend or, in fact, sanction an erring party within a political space and don't use that particular power and really give no reasons as to why that cannot happen? And this is why we are here. We've talked about vote buying for over many years, and in fact, the report on political violence and voting patterns of 2019 or thereabout is a very telling report, because it brings about information of who is guilty of doing that, right? But the institutions that are charged with the responsibility do not do anything. The second issue that is a problem is also what we've seen as a reluctance, for example, from the Zambia Police to be able to deal with events of violence or infractions in a fair manner, so to say. That the police is perceived to move with a lot of force and appetite to arrest or deal with those from opposing views, and very reluctant to do so when it comes to the ruling party. And that in itself is, gives a bad perception about the police and who they listen to. And I'm using my words very carefully here, talking about perceptions. And so, but it's there for you to see and judge. So that weakness is very important to undermine electoral integrity, because you're not creating a level playing field. But finally, Mr. Difuka, the protection of observers, media, and those that work in elections is very, very important. And it's a duty, as provided in law, of one, the commission, but two, the Zambia police to be able to do so. And if observers can be victimized who are on election duty, if media who are reporting on elections are victimized, and any other person, then that equally threatens the integrity of the election. So for me, it's really a need to rethink our approach to these particular elections as institutions that are charged with the responsibility to deal with corruption, to provide security, but also to administer elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. You are being careful because Mr. Chilabi is sitting next to you. There are too many lawyers in the house who will protect you. But Emma, you also want to highlight some of the challenges, or you want to respond?
No, everything has been covered.
Okay, but what are you doing? Issues have been raised about enforcement of the law. If anything, what I'm hearing is that we do have the laws in place which are good enough if they were fully enforced. But the challenge lies with enforcement. Do you agree that there are weaknesses around enforcement? And if you do, what are you preparing to do for this electoral cycle as this is it?
Okay, so thank you so much for that question. So I think the Electoral Commission operates in a very wide and broad space with various stakeholders. And the mandate and the issues that we are discussing here this morning does not rest only on the shoulders of the Electoral Commission, but also various stakeholders have a role to play. So in terms of what fits neatly within the space of the ECZ as an election management body, we have the responsibility to discharge our mandate in accordance with the law. And we take cognizance of the fact that, concerns on enforcement of certain issues that my colleagues have actually highlighted still remains perhaps outstanding. And the Commission, to a large extent, has positioned itself to have a broader look on how the election environment is actually moving at every particular aspect. It will not be wise in certain instances when the electoral environment is very tense. Then you met out the most, the high punishment that is there in the law. And because the electoral process itself is encouraging for participation. So what the Commission is focusing on is that can we have dialogue and engagement among the various stakeholders? Because it is when we sit around the table, engage and dialogue on the issues that affect us, that's when we are able to come up with solutions to the issues that we are faced with. So within the framework that the Commission operates, stakeholder engagement is very critical and very key. Then also, in line with the issues of stakeholder framework, I think from the last general election in 2021, the Commission has been very forthcoming and also proactive in disseminating the election roadmap. So it is clear in terms of what we will do at what particular time. And when there is need to provide an update or a variation on the activities on the election roadmap, that is duly communicated. If you've been following what the Commission has been doing, the election roadmap was rolled out in 2024. So that is ample time for various stakeholders to take a keen interest and participate in the various processes. But the Commission also has strengthened various structures within its ambit to address issues relating to electoral integrity. We have our conflict management committees, which are operational at national and district levels. These have further been strengthened to ensure that they are positioned not as reactive mechanisms, but to be proactive in terms of providing the necessary education within those communities at district level, but also with the introduction of the early warning system, we have positioned ourselves to tap in real time what is happening in terms of incidences of violence, not only of violence, but also of election-related corruption. If you dial or you go to our website to the early warning system, you will notice that corruption is one of the incidences that a citizen can actually report. So we've transferred the power to participate in the fight for an enhanced electoral integrity, not just it being a reserve of the commission, but transferred it to the citizen. So any citizen in this country can now report any form of electoral violence or any issue they have relating to election integrity. Last but not the least, we also have a means of enhancing transparency. All our processes in this country are open to observation and monitoring. And accreditation is open to institutions that are willing to actually observe the various processes. Peter has attested their participation of the various processes that have occurred since the last general election. So that in itself is a tool in which the Commission is using to enhance integrity in the electoral process, but also to support what other stakeholders are doing in the area of election integrity. We also have rolled out a robust voter education and publicity, because we have all noted that limited education and information by the general public also is a factor that has actually undermined integrity in our country. Some people do certain things, not because they just want to do it, but because they don't have the necessary information. So we have taken information out there to Zambians so that Zambians can be informed of the dangers of election corruption, for example, and how that affects the democracy of this nation.
I just hope, Emma, that when citizens report corruption or violence, you do have sufficient mechanism and bandwidth to address those complaints. In the past, the concern was, yes, I report and I see no action. Or I'm told there's insufficient evidence. So naturally, then the citizens sit back and say, why should I even be bothered? Because then the process will not really kick in to deal with this complaint. And as Peter said, particularly if the complaint affects people in high places. So what assurance are you giving to the voter that when they report using the platforms that you've highlighted, that their issues will be taken seriously?
Yes, so like you've rightly noted, so the early warning mechanism is a culmination of lessons learned from the previous work that the Commission has done in relation to conflict management. And be rest assured, because the early warning mechanism is not just being managed by ECZ. We have integrated key stakeholders, all the law enforcement agencies, including the Anti-Corruption Commission, are members of the conflict management. And they are actually, right now as we speak, there is a high-level capacity building that is ongoing to make sure that these law enforcement commission agencies are also directly responding, receiving, be like administrators in the back end to pick those issues and run with them. So, and at district level, there has been more enhanced capacity building over conflict management committees so that there is timely response to the issues when they occur. That I can give you a guarantee.
Great. Mr. Chilabi, the issue of Zambia police has come up. This issue of bias, perceived bias in handling electoral malpractices or electoral violence. What would be your response to that, and what are you doing to build the right image of the Zambia police? Because that's a perception out there, but one would want to know from where you sit what is being done so that the police is perceived as being independent of any other external forces in the discharge of your responsibilities?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me start with what's that we are doing at Zambia Police Service, particularly in policing this year's elections. So we are guided by the 2026 Electoral Security Plan. So we are policing this year's elections from a planned perspective. So this is a comprehensive plan arising from a SWOT analysis that we did from how we policed the 2021 general elections. So we sat down as Zambia Police Service together with other stakeholders and did, a critical analysis of how we policed the 2021. We picked certain, certain strengths as well as weaknesses on how we policed the 2021 elections. And then remember, we had some by-elections after 2021 to 2024 somewhere there. Then from there, we sat down and developed this, electoral security plan for 2024, and that's what, that 2026 rather, and that's what we are using. So this electoral security plan has got 4 key thematic areas, and these are law enforcement. We all know that there are pieces of legislation surrounding, elections. And these pieces of legislation, we need to enforce these laws as Zambia Police Service, as a principal law enforcement agencies. And how we police these, how we enforce these laws matters. We have things like impartiality, for instance, in the execution of these laws, and that's what we are doing. We've got strategies, we've got plans in ensuring that, we enforce the law in that impartial manner, not looking at where this person is coming from, for instance, or political party affiliation, and that's what we are doing. Of course, there are police directives, from the president and the commander-in-chief, who clearly stated that whenever we are policing, whenever we are carrying out duties as police, let's not look at an individual or let that person not hide in the name of a political party. So we got that, treated that as a policy, direction to that effect. And the Inspector General of Police on 22nd May highlighted on that. He gave a strategic direction on how we need to enforce the law in non-biased manner. Then now the other component of this electoral security plan is police visibility. For certain people to obey the law, they need the presence of a police officer. Just like most of us here, you'll be driving, going for work. Okay? When you see a cone there, a police officer standing by a road, that's when now we'll put our phone down, put your phone down, or that's when you start now putting up a seat belt. All right? So, meaning certain people, for them to obey the law, they need the presence of police officers. So we thought of coming up with a plan called police visibility. So police visibility, how do we make the presence of police officers easily accessible? I'm sure where we are coming from in our communities, we've seen the presence of police officers in various communities. I can cite here in Lusaka, when you go to Mandevu, you find police officers camping there. We've gotten police officers from various sections, from various departments, take them into these communities. That's where they are camping. Already they have clocked 1 month in those camps. We are remaining with 2 months or so camping there. And we saw the Inspector General of Police commissioning this in Kanyama. Because where we're coming from, it was a challenge. We would have to call police officers from Lusaka Central Police Station to respond to an emergency in Mutendere. So that would take time in order for us to respond to that. So we've taken police officers right in the communities for them to be easily, accessed there. And under police visibility, there's also a component of provision of security to all. It is our constitutional mandate as Zambia Police Service to provide security to all. So we are not looking at whichever political party. In this case, we are providing security to all political parties. And following the campaign schedules, campaign timetables that have been drafted, each and every officer in charge in a police station has got that campaign timetable that we are following. And police visibility as well, we are also looking at issues of avoiding, this bureaucracy. What is being applicable when it comes to public gathering in this case is the Public Order Act. For any gathering, in normal circumstances, political parties need to inform the police 5 days prior to that gathering. But if we strictly follow that, it would mean that every day political parties will be flocking police stations. Now, what is it that we've done? There are these, timetables, electoral timetables, that we know which political party will be at Mpezeni Market, which political party will be at this other area, and we've taken note of that. So impliedly, that is a notice on its own. We are aware. We've been informed by virtue of, the timetables. Then the third component of our electoral security plan is capacity building. Various, pieces of legislation have been amended, Electoral Process Act. Our officers need to understand that. So we've conducted a number of capacity building programs, ensuring that our officers as well understand that. We've taken our officers for various programs, crowd control, operations, training, and other aspects. We've done that. Then the fourth component is that of stakeholder engagement. Our doors are wide open at Zambia Police Service. We've met stakeholders from January, various stakeholders, and we are still meeting stakeholders when it comes to, engagement. We do operate in a philosophy of policing called a strategy and concept and philosophy of policing called community-oriented policing. And in this case, it tells us that we need to meet various stakeholders. We've met a number of stakeholders, I think even here. Was it just 2 days ago we were together at one of the meetings? Yeah. So that's what we've adopted, and our doors are wide open when it comes to that. So with political violence, let's look at where we're coming from first of all. Personally, I've policed elections, I think, from 1996, up to date, and I've seen the changes when it comes to political violence. What is it that people are using, okay, when it comes to political violence and the like? So there's this component of behavior amongst political players and their followers. Okay? Someone is having a meeting here. This person gets a machete. This person gets a knife and hacks the other person who are meeting, at that place. What is it that is going on in the mind of this person for them to get a knife and, hack the other person who is there? So we need to look at political violence from, holistical perspective, a broader perspective. And what is the role of other stakeholders in curbing political violence? Of course, it is our duty as police to protect lives. It is our duty to enforce law and order. All right. Should it be the sole responsibility of the police in curbing? Yes, it is our responsibility, but should it be left to the police alone to curb political violence? What is the role of that chairman? What is the role of that provincial chairman? What is the role of this person who is mobilizing the youths? What is the role of behavioral scientists? Because it's not normal for someone to just get a knife and then, stab Emma here. So it calls for collective responsibility. Yes, it is our duty as Zambia Police Service, but this calls for collective responsibility. That's what we need to understand if we are to completely deal with political violence. It's a behavioral kind of thing that we need to tackle from all angles.
But it also goes back to the need to enforce regulations, and report findings. Peter referred to the Commission of Inquiry report, the 2019 report, which was quite extensive in identifying the drivers of electoral violence, the drivers for the voting patterns we had in 2016. But this report lies unattended, despite all the recommendations that it made. So I hear you and I agree with you, we need to do much more, but I think we also need to go beyond just signposting what the problem is to really get into the action point as well. So I'll come back to you, Mr. Shalabi, in a short while. I want to go to the media, Mr. Kayanda. What are you doing to prepare and train the media and media houses to combat disinformation, to ensure transparent coverage, notwithstanding the limitations you highlighted, low pay, lack of incentives, etc. But what are you doing as MISA to prepare the media for this year's elections?
Yes. The role of the media basically is to provide accurate, timely, and balanced information to enable citizens make informed decisions. And it's very critical to to note that in this era of cyberspace, we have a lot of misinformation and disinformation. However, we need to counteract on this problem. If I may ask in this group, how many people know any fact-finding platforms to verify your information? As you can see,
other than ChatGPT, which everyone uses.
Yeah, we have over 54 fact-checking platforms we have. And more importantly here, we are mainly concentrating on the I-Verify information, which we are trying to capacity build the citizens and the journalists so that before you can confirm whether that information is correct or not, you can in fact find it. If you find a story, you just send it to I-Verify. Within the next 30 minutes, you are told whether the information is true or not. So those are some of the things we are looking at in terms of capacity building the journalists, capacity building the citizenry, and also we are trying to work with other stakeholders like the ACC so that some of the issues affecting this problem of misinformation and disinformation can be tackled with.
All right. And from a youth perspective, I'd be interested to know the work that you've lined up for grassroots mobilization, particularly of the young people, given this new dimension of the mixed member proportional representation system. What exactly are you doing so that then people don't get taken advantage of, and particularly the young people? So that's on one hand. The other hand is the young people are used in the forefront for electoral violence, insulting people. We've seen some of the instances of violence already. It's young people are in the forefront. One would be interested as a youth-focused entity. What are you doing? So on those two fronts, mixed member as well as violence.
All right, thank you so much. I firstly want to mention that the mixed member proportional representation is very progressive. It is not positions and governance that are being handed out to these marginalized groups, but it's a very great step in moving forward and being progressive in making sure that no one is left behind and everyone is represented in decision making, in policy formulation, and in governance. I think I will really go back to the core of what I think the issue is. This progressive law has come to save the people of Zambia, the youths, the women, and the persons with disability. But the real question lies, do we know? Do the young people actually know what the mixed member proportional representation entails? Do they know what it means? Because there are a lot of sentiments that have come out. We hear sentiments on social media saying, no, these positions will just be given to their relatives. These positions, they just want to create positions for the people that they want, which is not the case. Of course, there lies an opportunity for these provisions to be manipulated and to be used against the very young people, the very women, and the very marginalized groups that they were created to serve. I think for us as an organization, it is really going into the grassroots, making sure that the information reaches the young people, making sure that the information reaches the grassroots. As an organization, we do have a membership of over 300 young people, and this is across Zambia, all 10 provinces. individuals, organizations, and entities. We do continue to engage with some of the institutions that are present here today, SEC as well. We continue going into the communities, having these discussions. They don't always have to be very formal. They don't always have to be very intimidating, because you know these issues of elections, policies, laws can be intimidating, especially to us young people. But really just to have the conversation. Do you know? Are you aware? It says this, it says that. Do you know that as a young person, if you're aligned with a political party and the list of the young people in that political party is submitted, you could have an opportunity to represent young people, to represent the people of your...
Sorry, I'm sure it's not a young person in charge of the microphones, but you can use the other microphone. I have a feeling it must be Mwape, and Mwape is on the borderline. He's no longer a young person. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope I haven't lost my line of thought. But as a young person, my memory is very... Yes. Yeah, as I was saying, so I feel that really where the issue may lie is the young people not taking the power. We ask for a table at the seat, and when we're given that seat at the table, what do we bring to the table as young people? Definitely not violence, definitely not misinformation. We bring data. As young people, we are equipped. We are not just future leaders, we are the current leaders. And our current policies reflect that. They reflect an opportunity for us as young people to come to the table and bring the change that we demand for. I think I just also want to note that accountability is a two-way street. As we hold our policy makers, the people in public office, accountable, we also have to hold ourselves accountable. What are we doing as grassroots organizations? What are we doing as young people to make sure that this information is accessible and available? What are we doing as young people to make sure that we do not put ourselves in positions where we're being manipulated and used as vessels of violence and electoral misinformation and malpractice? I think for us, the main thing is really just sensitization. The main thing is making sure that information reaches the young people. And for us, the main thing is making sure that we hold the duty bearers accountable. And we ourselves are accountable, not just to the duty bearers, we are accountable to ourselves, and we are also accountable to the citizenry of Zambia and the young people that we represent. As I sit on this panel, I of course represent the organization that I work with, but I represent every young person, every youth of Zambia. So as I sit here, I am accountable to that group that I currently represent. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Shimuka, TIZ, you launched a project, Kuteteza Masanko. I hope I said it correctly. You couldn't find a member, Kuteteza Masanko project for the 2026 general election. Just tell us a little bit about this project. What is this project about? And what do you intend to achieve through this project? And I think you had the first statement made from this project. Just very briefly.
Yeah, thanks so much, moderator. Indeed, as Transparency International Zambia, we launched a project called Kuteteza Masanko, meaning protecting the votes, in short. So this project, there are a number of issues that are in there. So for us as Transparency International Zambia, we do monitor elections, but we are skewed towards anti-corruption related aspects. So one of the things that we are doing in there is to monitor the campaign period with respect to electoral corrupt incidents. And we have stationed our monitors, but also leveraging on what we call the transparency action groups that are in all the provinces, but also the general citizens that you can report any corrupt incident that you come across during the campaign period. It could be vote buying and so forth and so on. There is a web-based tool that has been developed for reporting that. But most importantly is that you can also walk to our offices and report that particular aspect. We have got a desk of legal-minded people that will actually help you to package that particular case that you bring to us. And at the end of it, because we do not do litigation and prosecute, we submit these cases to law enforcement agencies such as the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Zambia Police, plus also ECZ, so that they can take it up from there. The second aspect that we are doing under this particular project, of course, is information dissemination. If you look at our page, we have started to do what we are calling social media campaigns, where we are breaking down electoral offenses that are in the Electoral Process Act. You can check all that information is on our page, but we are also using other big bloggers like Mwebantu and so forth and so on to reach a number of other related, to reach a number of citizens. But most importantly, the end game, like the moderator indicated, the end game for us, of course, is to check the credibility of the electoral process. And at the end of it, we produce what we call an integrity index to see how credible the elections or the results themselves have been. And this is where we do a comparative analysis of what the ECZ is announcing and what our monitors are getting on the ground. If there is a discrepancy, we actually come in real time to raise that so that we can engage the relevant authorities. But also, most importantly, we pick issues in the environment and update on a weekly basis. We produce these statements. You can be able to follow these statements. So I encourage each and everyone who is here and also those that are following online that Chaopen report that particular electoral corrupt practice that you have come across. Thank you.
Thanks, Chimuka. CCMG, you do long-term election observation. You are preparing for your vote tabulation. Just give us a sense of what are you planning to do, or what are you currently doing as we head to the 2026 elections, and how you're addressing these electoral integrity challenges.
Right. So for us, elections are seen as not only a 3-month period before elections, but we look at other activities. So we actively engaged in the voter registration process and rendered an opinion in terms of how that process was undertaken. We looked at the delimitation because we believe it's an important exercise for each of the citizens knowing where they're going to belong. And currently we have a total of 330 long-term observers that have been in the field since 1st March. So from March to date, we have released 3 long-term observation reports that are quite detailed in terms of what our findings are. And because election integrity cannot be measured only on election day or just the campaign period and election day, it also calls for an analysis of how activities such as voter registration were undertaken, boundary delimitation, the nomination of candidates, and indeed the post-election aspect, which I talked about, which is the electoral dispute resolution part. So those monitors are still active on the field. And for poll day, of course, we're going to have approximately 1,600 observers that are going to be deployed to a nationally representative sample. So we do sample-based observation, and we pay particular attention to statistical principles. And so that is what we are basically looking out for. We are partnering with different organizations such as MISA to be able to collaborate some of these reports, but also I've been bothering Mr. Chilabi here that the police and other law enforcement could actually benefit from some of these findings that we are able to pull out. And because we think it's not just about documenting these events, it's about what are we doing about these particular events. And so that is what we are really looking for, to be able to pass on some of these issues, and we see that they've been resolved. I think it's only when we do that that we are going to be proud that we participated in the 2026 elections and we contributed to the greater integrity of the electoral outcome.
want to turn to the, even my microphone is off. I would like to turn to the audience so that we can engage them very briefly. But before we do that, Mr. Chilabi was talking about police presence, and I was just smiling to myself. Growing up, I'm a rock of ages, so I grew up in the Kaunda times. The police had this attitude that every time they see you, you've done something wrong. So I'm just trying to imagine police in the community. They're seeing everyone as a criminal. But anyway, I'm sure you're doing something to make them professional. Let me get some interventions from the audience. Please state where you're coming from, and only one question per person, and brief one. Easterners in particular, brief is brief. Not mambo kutueba kumugubudu, brief is brief. So let me see the hands that want to speak. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do the first 4, and then I'll come to this side. Very brief. Tell us your name and where you're coming from.
My name is Mbare Suzio. I'm coming from the Economic Freedom Fighter. I'm the Secretary General for the party. I'm very happy that we have the police inside here. And first of all, I will not be very brief because my point is very serious. So I will need to usher in the point.
No, I will make you brief, Mr.
Yes.
Masuzo. Be very brief.
No, I will not be brief because I want to air my point. So I won't summarize it very much, but I will explain so that you get what I want to say.
Okay.
Thank you. The first thing is on the police. We have the Public Order Act and the cyber law. In politics, it's not aircon politics like we are here in the aircon. For us, propaganda is part of a democratic dispensation. If I have to win elections, I should have proper propaganda machinery. Even the media knows. So I don't know how you distinguish misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda. Because I need to win elections. So I feel the police should help us. I think you, Mr. Shiravi, I've been your customer 4 times on cyber law. You even know my name, sir. But some of the offenses you get me on are not even near. So we want you to help us as the public, the police, explain, because you arrest a lot of people.
All right.
The second issue.
No, one question.
Thank you very much. I'll stop here.
Yes, please. Before you are arrested for other offenses. The second, go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Janae Chungu. I am an aspiring candidate for Roma constituency, coming from the Socialist Party. Well, my question is not brief, but here it is. Mm-hmm. I want to find out from the panelists, what is your take or what actions are you going to take on the community expectations? Because we're here to talk about corruption, isn't it? The expectations on the ground, especially for us candidates, there is a common statement. Every honorable here will agree with me. There is the Honorable Yakamanzi before you can even wire out your manifesto. Even when you tell them the manifesto, you have just gone there to tell them your manifesto, they still want Yakamanzi. So now, there is a situation where they say, but honorable mzaenda cheso chabe mwatinkazika pano 1 hour, tifunako Yakamanzi. When you reach your pocket as a candidate and you leave money there, we are called corrupt candidates. Meanwhile, the community is seriously demanding for these things. So as you are seated there, from the police, the churches, and everybody there that I'm seeing, what are you going to do to sensitize, to put awareness that even the people we are going to meet on the ground, they know to say this person has come to just tell us their manifesto. They are not here to feed us. So you should tell us clearly. We should know. Even as we are going to the ground, we should know to say the people we are going to meet, they have heard from these and these enforcements that there is no yakamanzi.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. I was also going to say, and what are you doing yourselves to ensure that people know that there is nothing like Yakamans? But they will respond. Madam,
No, I can respond.
No, I think it's fine. You've made your point.
Okay.
Let her ask.
Thank you.
There's a lady there.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, good afternoon.
My name is Chewe Chanda from Brave Movement Africa. My concern had 3 concerns, but since you said one, I'm going to pick on the 9 MPs who have gone unopposed. And I heard it from one of the panelists saying, they noticed that for the first time in Zambia, we have 9 members who have gone unopposed, and there's need for them to investigate. So now, as I stand here, today being 18th, we are remaining with about 55 days as Zambia goes to polls. And yet there are no investigations that are underway. What are you waiting for? Because as I stand here as a member of Brave Movement Africa, the statement I was expecting was, after we found out that we have these unopposed members of parliament, the steps we've taken are these and these. So what are we waiting for? Thank you.
All right. Let's move to that table. I'll get the last one, then I can get some responses before I come to this side.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
My name is Bartholomew Piri from the Socialist Party. Mine is directed to the Zambia Police. I understand that the Zambia Police have the capacity to maintain law and order in this country before, during, and after elections. Now, individuals have no capacity to do that. Why is the police failing to curtail these issues, the issues of violence in this country? More especially when it's coming from the other side, you realize that there are those biasness where the opposition are arrested and those coming from the ruling party are left unpunished. Thank you.
All right. I know Mr. Chilabi already responded to that, but let me get a quick round of responses before we do the last round of questions. Emma, you want to start first? It's ladies first when there's no danger. Okay, Mr. Chilabi. No, Mr. Chilabi, you want to go? Emma is being a lawyer, a good lawyer.
Thank you very much. I'll start with Mr. Mbale Masuzio, and good morning. It's afternoon already. Mr. Masuzio is justifying the aspect of propaganda machinery. There are pros and cons, but largely, there are effects of propaganda. So when you reach out to the community or the electorates there, probably using social media platforms, there's a message that you are relaying to the people out there. What message are you relaying? Is it something bordering on misinformation? As I was there, I think I came across a certain page, social media page, indicating that a known person who is in custody has died whilst in police custody. So I called the police station, and I was told, no, sir, this person is here, is okay. So someone has posted that on social media. What could be the effects of such, kind of things? All right. Now, I know when we get out to people, when we send information to members of the public, to our audiences there, we are simply enjoying the fundamental rights, okay? Freedom of expression and association, but mostly expression in this case. But let us remember that this freedom has got limitations. when you go to the extent of maybe touching on national security, matters with regard to national security, then definitely you find the law pending there. When you touch on public morality, how many AI-generated activities have we seen depicting indecency when not for the head of state, for various politicians, for various people out there? Even myself, I think I've been a victim. I was in a diaper at some point. Right? So who would be happy? Can you say you are simply enjoying your freedom of expression? But of course, no, it's something that is touching on public morality. Hence, we've got pieces of legislation, the Cyber Crimes Act. I know people would condemn the Cyber Crimes Act holistically, but there are various crimes that we need to curb in this case. Misinformation, for instance. Cyberbullying and harassment, which has got a negative effect on this person as well as their family members. So when we enforce the law, it's those aspects that we want to deal with and remove so that we protect other people. When I write something against him or about him, it shouldn't affect him or his family. I have to do it within so that their rights, freedoms are not affected. So it's these negative aspects that will follow as law enforcement officers, because we need to protect the integrity of the other person who has the fundamental right to do that. So let's use social media platforms. There are various, as I said, identity crimes. Someone will just, crop your identity and then open a Facebook page or whichever social media account and claim that you are the one and end up now, swindling innocent citizens. These are cyber-related crimes. These are crimes being perpetrated by use of computers. So that's what we do as Zambia Police Service and other law enforcement officers. So misinformation is bad as well. You end up misleading the country. You end up misleading, innocent people with regard to that. So even if it's propaganda, let's use that propaganda responsibly and not to affect other people or innocent individuals in that case. After all, when you use propaganda, you are there tomorrow as an MP, and then you'll be held accountable. This is what you told us. It's here on social media. Have you fulfilled this? Those same people will turn against you. So why can't we just be factual with whatever we give? Let's be truthful in whatever information we give out to members of the public. And we appreciate social media because tomorrow you'll be held accountable against what you are saying. So thumbs up to social media in that now certain people are being held accountable for what they did, for what they lied to the public out there. So with regard to community expectations, Yakamanzi, it's a culture, that has come out there. Even in villages, we do conduct sensitization programs, awareness raising. We go to these villages, police, on gender-based violence, for instance. It's somehow become a norm such that you cannot live, say, unless you get water and anything and give those people. But to what extent are we doing so that this does not have constitutive elements of corruption or corrupt practice? So we need to draw a line in between that does not extend to corrupt practice as stipulated in Part 8 of the Electoral Process Act, number 35 of 2016. So we need to draw a line, and we need to do a lot of sensitization programs to the people out there. Duties of the citizens. What are their responsibilities, for instance, to participate in corrupt activities? So it's everyone's responsibility here. As stakeholders, we need to relay that message out there. Then Mr. Bartholomew, police failing to act, we've been cited as biased in our law enforcement aspects. I know this is coming maybe from the recent activities that we had, starting with the nomination of candidates. We had activities, certain activities in Mazabuka. And we also had the political violent, related activities in Chawama, in Ikabwe, Chavuma, Kalumbila, as well as the latest one in Mandevu. Okay, so what is it that we are doing as police? Have we left these cases unattended to? Chavuma and Kalumbila, we had 2 incidents where some members of the ruling party went to the nomination centers with their firearms exposed. What is that we did? What is that we did as police with regard to those 2 incidents? Of course, we apprehended those people and ensured that they were detained accordingly, and the process are ongoing with regard to that. Mazabuka, it brought another issue. Perhaps this is a matter that is likely to be in court, so I will not dwell so much on that, but we had to apprehend people from this side or the other side as well. Let's come to Chawama. Chawama, we had that clash in Chawama where 2 parties clashed. That's UPND and Tonse Alliance. So after that clash, we moved in as police and opened some dockets of cases against those individuals that were found wanting. But unfortunately, it's only one side that went to report to the police station. And the other side did not report, up to now. And we are engaging them, we are inviting them, come. We saw what happened. These are cases of malicious damage to property. These are cases of assault where you need the actual complainant. If it's malicious damage, this person should go to the police station and give a statement and the value of the property damaged. I cannot cite a value of the property damaged of your vehicle that has been damaged when it's not mine. So you have to physically go to the police station and lodge this complaint. Or maybe we approach them and do that. So we are engaging those so that we have dockets opened and have a balanced kind of approach. That's what we are doing. Kabwe is the same thing. We had an incident in Mandevu the day before yesterday. We've apprehended the ringleader suspected of having participated in those crimes. And this person is from the ruling party. So we'll continue. Mr. Moderator, what we are applying now, in this case, this strategy is coming from our electoral security plan on the component of law enforcement. We have an operation that we are calling Operation Long Arm. So Operation Long Arm is, we've noticed where we're coming from, that someone will go to Soweto Market and find the youths, buy them beer, give them 50 kwachas, give them pangas, they go and hack a person. And when we apprehend those, somehow we've not been extending to the ringleader, the mastermind of that incident. So with what we are doing now with Operation Long Arm is, we are going beyond the actual perpetrators that we've apprehended at the scene there, to that person who has facilitated. The penal code tells us about parties to a crime, someone who has facilitated, someone who has counseled those young people to do that, and then a person who has played any role to facilitate that crime, and those that have been left scot-free. So to political parties that are here, it's a timely warning that in an event that we apprehend those youths, our investigations will not be within the framework looking at those youths that we've arrested. We will go beyond. Even if it's a 50 kwacha that you provided for them to buy to Jirijiri, you are deemed to have taken part and parcel in the commissioning of that crime. And to that extent, we are in the process of engaging our counterparts in the criminal justice system. Because we had seen, we apprehend people, they will appear in court after 2 or 3 months or so. So we are engaging our counterparts in the criminal justice system so that we have something like a fast-track court. You commit a crime today, tomorrow you appear in court so that others can learn suit from what is happening. So this is what we are applying as Zambia Police Service during this year's elections. Thank you.
Okay, I know we are now running out of time, and Madam Mungalava is looking at me like we have to finish by 1. I promise this end, if there are 1 or 2 quick questions, as long as you don't repeat what others have already said, I'll take 1 and 2. Go ahead. The mic. Is there a working mic near you? No, not now, please. We are really working with time. Personal privilege at lunchtime. We can do that at lunch. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. Anyway, let me do away with the mic. It seems it's not okay.
Sir, go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name's David Nyurenda. I'm the aspiring mayor of Lusaka under Citizen First. I've got a question to ECZ and Zambia Police. You know, hadn't it been the DG ACC saying this is not academic but a practical one, I would not have stood. I would have just waited for tea break and go. Because usually I know these are mostly academic and for sure to the donors that we are doing the right thing. But it's about time we take full responsibility of our country. We protect democracy. We are phasing out. We are leaving our children. Let them have a good word about us. My question. On the nomination day, mayoral nomination day, I was a participant. Regrettably, I was also a victim. Imagine your mayor being a victim manhandled by people who were not invited by ECZ. Why? Because the police and ECZ entertained them. They entertained them. All the time, ECZ have people who are accredited to go to any event. Just like this event, we are not here by accident. We were invited. So how did those cadres find themselves in an area cordoned by ECZ and entertained by police? And today you are saying we are doing our part. Let's start by apologizing and make amends and move forward. Thank you.
The last question.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Gift Banda from Zambia must prosper. My question to the police, because everyone was claiming we are engaging our partners. It's like I'm seeing bishops preaching to each other. And I don't know whom they want to convert. Because what we are seeing on the ground is very different from what you are saying. Let me go straight to the Zambia Police Service. Prior to 2021, we had serious problems of political violence. And now again, we are seeing the same. Are you waiting for these crimes to be committed for you to take action? Or do you take proactive measures to make sure that there's an electoral timetable? You know that people are participating in these elections. And you have the electoral timetable you have admitted. What have you done to make sure that you put in place your officers to prevent that violence from taking place instead of acting later after the violence has taken place? And why are you not engaging the political parties for us to also tell you the challenges we are going through that causes the violence, so that we can work together to prevent this? Because this is 2026, we are talking about political violence. In 2031, we'll gather here again and talk about the same thing. And the police will say we are doing something. You are not doing enough. Thank you.
All right. Great. Okay, let's get some responses and then we'll wind up. But Peter, there's still the issue of the unopposed candidates. Are they being investigated? What's going to take place? What does the law say? Maybe let's start from there before we even jump to the investigation. What does the law say about unopposed candidates?
So, thank you. And so the law says, there's a provision in the law which talks about what amounts to unopposed candidates. So it's where, at the close of nomination, there is only one validly nominated candidate. At the close of nominations, right? Then there is a provision which allows a candidate to withdraw their nomination before the close of the nominations. So If people are withdrawing post-nomination, that is a separate issue that the law maybe did not contemplate. But as far as the law stands, is that an opposed candidate can only be declared as such when at the close of nomination, there was only one valid nomination. So anything other than that is something that has to be, of course, defined further by law.
All right, and no, I think we don't have, it has already been asked. Let them respond. Please, let's proceed. So anything else on this issue? Excuse me? Yes, I think let's not have a dialogue on just this one issue. The issue was asked, they have responded. Is there anything else that's going to be said on this issue of unopposed candidates? He said it, Chimuka, is there anything? So the question that was asked, is there therefore an investigation as to why the candidates have gone unopposed? I think that you had raised that, Chimuka, and that's the question. Is there any investigation that is ongoing as far as you know? Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I indicated in my area submission that we receive these cases and we investigate and build on those cases. Depending on the evidence that we generate, then we forward these cases to the law enforcement agencies for further investigations and engagement. Thank you. This is an ongoing process. Thank you. Yeah, moderator, just allow me to chip in to what Mr. Chilabi mentioned in responding to the Roma aspiring candidate, the issue of commands. I think that it's a twofold kind of an approach that we need to use, because this situation was created not only by the electorate, but also by the politicians themselves. When you are on the ground there, you campaign based on promises which we think that it's supposed to be government structures that are supposed to do that. For example, you tell electorates that you are going to make the road. It is not your responsibility as a member of parliament to make the road. And you are just raising higher expectations to the electorate to say that then there is money here for them to benefit from there. So as you campaign, you also have a role to demystify such expectations, as other civil society organizations and of course civil society organizations would do a lot of sensitization to the members to ensure that those expectations are lowered in terms of what they expect from the members of parliament that are aspiring. Thank you.
Mr. Chilabi, you have two questions.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. The issue of campaign timetables. In all the constituencies, we sat down as stakeholders and developed those timetables, and we actually validated that indeed these are correct, the timings, everything, the places was okay. And we are doing that. As political parties are doing that. So from where we are today, how many complaints have we received as police from how many constituencies? I think it's just a number of constituencies, very few constituencies, where we've heard complaints of this political party, political party A, interfering with political party B, which has been, which is meeting lawfully in line with the timetable that is there. We had an issue in Kabwe Central constituency. It's a matter that we recorded as police and suspects who caused that damage in Kabwe Central on the run. We are pursuing those. We had an incident, the latest one is in Mandevo constituency. This political party had the right time to meet at that particular area. Then this political party went with a view of disturbing them. So that's the second one. We also had another incident in Mutendere. It was one of the first incidents that we recorded on 25th June. So it's about 3 or 4, if anything, maybe less than 5 constituencies. Out of how many constituencies? 226. So let's look at maybe convert this into percentage. Out of 226 constituencies that we have, and where we are at now, in terms of a political party interfering with the other political party, it's less than 10 or so, where we've recorded these incidents. So we attribute this, one, to the cooperation that we are receiving from you, as political parties especially, and the engagements that we've had during the entire process of doing it. Okay? Then in terms of police engagement, we've said officers in charge in those respective areas are our representatives at Zambia Police Service. If you have any challenge that you need to convey to the police, engage them. Then further, we've gone to the extent of reminding political parties that in an event that you are having a meeting at Kakungu Market, and, from our intelligence as police, we feel that we need to cover you. Of course, remind us, or let's remind each other, we'll come and provide that coverage. I think which has not been happening where we're coming from previously. We will leave you on your own. But we saw that to be more reactive, something that we could have prevented. So we are covering political parties whenever they are having meetings. And instead of inconveniencing you to say every day, you come and start reminding the police, give 5 days notice, because the Public Order Act has not been amended. That provision, Section 5, is still there. But if we inconvenience you every day, you come reminding us, we'll be at that market, we'll be at that market. We say, this same timetable is enough. It's a notification enough. Just proceed with your meetings. And that's what we are doing at Zambia Police Service. So, police coverage, yes, we may not be in each and every area. Zambia is 752,000 square kilometers. We have 24,000 police officers. So at times, we may not be in each and every perimeter of Zambia. So where we are not there, it is your duty, all right? It is your duty as a political party, as an individual, to follow the manual on how you need to conduct yourselves. The Constitution is very clear. Duties of the citizen. That is applicable to you as a political party. Behave accordingly. Where we are not there. So we say policing security is a collective responsibility. We also need your part. You need to play a role in curbing political violence as political parties. And be factual. And conduct more of civic education to your cadres. Sit down with them. If you do such a thing, it's an offense. Moderator, a Rosa bus has got 26 seats there where someone should sit comfortably. And then when you are going for the meeting, someone decides to sit on the rooftop. Which political party has a provision in their constitution that says whenever our cadres are moving from point A to point B, instead of sitting comfortably in the vehicle, they need to be on rooftop? And you entertain that. Tomorrow you turn back and condemn the police. Should we go to that extent of reminding people that this is a seat, you need to sit like this? I think you can do better than that. Thank you so much.
All right. Great. Let's wrap up. Mr. Kayanda, so what will be your recommendations going forward to promote electoral integrity? Mr. Kayanda? Go ahead. The Mayor of Lusaka. He'll answer on his conclusion.
Hello?
The candidate for Mayor of Lusaka. We don't yet have a mayor. Mr. Kayanda?
Hello. Looking ahead to 2026 elections, as Zambia prepares for the 2026 elections, there's need to strengthen public trust in the electoral institutions and the processes. This can be achieved through increased transparency, proactive disclosure of information, protection of media freedom and freedom of expression, strengthening efforts to combat misinformation and disinformation, enhance civic and voter education, accountability mechanisms that address corruption and electoral misconduct. A credible election is not one that is peaceful on the polling day. It is the one that is transparent, inclusive, accountable, and trusted by the citizens throughout the entire process. In conclusion, Mr. Zambia remains committed to promoting media freedom, freedom of expression, access to information, digital rights, and as essential components of democratic governance. I submit.
Thank you, Mr. Kanda. Anne, Triple AZ, what should we do to ensure electoral integrity in 2026?
Thank you so much. Before the discussions that have been held here today, I had a well-curated conclusion that I would give. But I think really stemming from the conversations that we've had, especially with the plenary, is really holding ourselves accountable as much as we hold the law enforcement entities, the SEC, the Electoral Commission of Zambia accountable. What are we doing on the ground? Because the police is not with me in the living room as I have those conversations with my children, with my sister, who's going to be at the market when the political parties come through. It is our duty to be able to sensitize. It is our duty to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And so I think for me in my closing will just be to urge everyone who's in this room, what are you as an individual, not the organization that you represent, not the media house that you represent, not the entity or political party that you represent. As an individual, what are you doing to ensure electoral integrity? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair, is it Chimuka?
Having learned that electoral integrity is multi-faced, I call upon all stakeholders to actually hold the mantle in their respective constituencies. Thank you.
Emma, is it?
Allow me to attempt to partially respond to the question that was raised by the aspiring candidate for the mayor of Lusaka seat. So, in every nomination center, all stakeholders need to be accredited, but you must bear in mind that the supporters that accompany the candidates, those are allowed without a formal accreditation by virtue that they are coming in to support you as a candidate. So the question is, how do we strike a balance, especially as political leaders, as they come to support us? How do we ensure that even if there are tempers that flare up inside the nomination center, how do we responsibly manage that particular crisis? I was not personally at that particular center, so I will not really comment on the aspect that you raised that there was inaction from the Zambia Police or ECZ. But I just want to place a demand on political leaders. We have a responsibility. It goes also to the issue of commands. You know, it starts with us as political leaders. The level of leadership that we put forward is the same level of leadership or response we'll get from those that are actually looking up to you. So in closing, I want to just also use what ACC has said. There's a motto on our folder, a corrupt-free Zambia begins with me. And an election that is of integrity begins with you and me. All the stakeholders in the electoral process play a pivotal role. You cannot only say that these elections are of integrity because the burden is only on the election management body, but political parties, the media, civil society organizations, the law enforcement agencies, together we should own this and also advocate on best practices that ensure that we have an electoral process that is of integrity. All of us are required to participate in this process, and the joint efforts of all stakeholders cannot be placed aside. We are existing in an environment where media itself, and in particular misinformation and disinformation, is at its peak. What are we doing as individuals? What are we doing as stakeholders to address some of those issues that will affect the integrity of the election? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shilabi? Your concluding remarks, you can use my mic.
Thank you so much. Having, or ensuring electoral integrity is possible, provided we work together as a team. We need to shield these factors that affect electoral integrity. It could be crime, it could be violence, and as I said, it's everyone's responsibility to do that. So let's use social media responsibly. Let's avoid misinformation. We need to do that. Let's continue working together. As Zambia Police Service, as I alluded to earlier on, we operate within the philosophy concept of community-oriented policing. Our doors are wide open. Office of the officer in charge, office of the commanding officer in respective areas, even the office of the Inspector General of Police. I don't think we will chase any stakeholders from meeting as police. We are there to provide the service, and service provision demands that you get the feedback from the people that are receiving that service. So we are open. That is our policy as Zambia, our police service. Let's all stay away from violence. Then in case of getting in touch with the police, specifically when it comes to curbing political violence, reporting cases to the police, you don't even need now to go physically to a police station. There's a toll-free line that we've just introduced, 9011, 9011, 9011. You call that number, or if not, 9010, 9010. We've dedicated these lines specifically to deal with these issues and ensuring that, you access the police. So please, let's continue working together. Our doors are wide open as Zambia Police Service. Thank you.
Well, without risking repeating what everybody has said, for me, I think it's an issue of greater collaboration in terms of enforcement of the legal framework. Because remember, the first call for assessing an election is, number one, the legal framework. What does the legal framework say? So we'll not talk about what political parties did. We'll first of all look at what does the legal framework provide, and then we'll assess an election from there. So it's about enforcement of these pieces of legislation and providing the necessary protection for the rights of the citizens. Let me end by just reflecting on the comment by the aspiring candidate for Roma constituency. And for me, I think we really need to rethink and redefine the aspects around vote buying and what they mean. Because from what she has described, you could, actually think of it as vote buying. But when you look at the law in terms of defining what a vote buying would mean, is where you are offering or asking somebody to vote for you in exchange for that commands. So we really need to not so much downplay the issue, but rather think of it as a very critical reform issue, because it makes law enforcement very, very difficult. Because you can argue your way out of that commands, but somehow you can also equally get caught up. So I think these are conversations that are necessary, and I think it's a very, very important reform issue that will help even the law enforcement to be able to, enforce the law without any doubt or fear. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. It's been an interesting conversation. Still a lot of things to be discussed, and I'm sure even at lunch break you may have ongoing discussions with members of the audience. Just to thank you, Mr. Kayanda, Ann Kapolo, Chumuka Nachibinga, Emma Mwinga Simfukwe, Mr. Godfrey Chilabi, and Peter Manangombe. A big round of applause for the panelists. Thank you very much. Chisanga, we hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Difuka, for moderating that insightful panel discussion. And to the panelists, thank you very much for your insightful conversation. And to the audience, thank you very much for being an attentive audience. At this particular moment, we'll break for an entertainment interlude as I call on Tieseko Drama Group. Another round of applause for TSA Drama Group. And on that entertainment note, we have come to the end of our program. But before we stand up for the national anthem, let me just, on behalf of the Anti-Corruption Commission, thank everyone who came, because this event would not have been a success if you did not show up. So we really appreciate your attendance. Thank you very much for coming. And remember, your vote is your voice, and the fight against corruption begins with you. You have a responsibility to fight corruption. So reject